Hello and welcome to another Dragon Plus live stream. Blah blah blah. I'm already off to a rocking start here. Welcome back to Dragon Plus live stream and or Happy Fun Hour 2.
Part 2, the next day, the next hour.
For the gentleman sitting next to me, Mike Merles. And let me refresh my screen here so I know what everyone at home is looking at right now. Do we have Satine? We do. We have Satine Phoenix on screen already. So hello, Satine. So for I'm looking at Pelham right now. I'm sounding tinny in my ears. Am I sounding okay on the stream, or are we? Oh, the technical.
We're working with a new piece of equipment today, so.
All right. Well, hopefully the folks, the viewers at home, are able to hear me okay.
You're coming through loud and clear for me. So.
I'm sounding nasally, but that's just my voice.
That's your voice.
Damn it. This week we wanted to talk about a very special event that's taking place this weekend, actually on Saturday, July 28th. It is Founders and Legends. This is an event that Luke Gygax has organized. He's teamed up with his friends at Wizards of the Coast, Iron Wind Metals, and Dwarven Forge to reflect on the foundation of Dungeons & Dragons and celebrate its phenomenal resurgence. So on Saturday, July 28th, you can join Luke Gygax and our host, Satine Phoenix, as they discuss the origins of Dungeons & Dragons from its creation in the tiny town of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin in 1974. I'll always know how old D&D is because awesome born in 1974.
There you go. That's like perfectly arranged.
To its massive influence reflected in the popular culture today. Off the top of my head, definitely not writing it copy down. So before we jump a little bit into the details of Founders and Legends, Mike, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us for a second hour of live streaming.
Oh, no problem. This is great. This is like work where I just hang out and talk about games. This is like...
And what was the topic last hour? Was the Druid Summoner?
Yeah, so we didn't build anything with the subclass. We just built the sort of chassis for a spell that would let you summon a creature.
Okay.
In a way that's a bit more maybe evocative than what we have right now in the game, and it is quicker to cast, and yeah, it has a lot more flexibility. So we'll see where it goes. But it's a good starting position. So.
Super cool. So Mike Merles, D&D franchise creative director.
That's me.
That sounds fancy.
It's not. It's
And Satine Phoenix, as folks know from Maze Arcana, as well as some awesome work recent days officially with Dungeons & Dragons on our social and community engagement side of things. So welcome, Satine.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
I have a lot of questions. Oops, for you. Now I'm dropped out. Oh, there we go. I've got a lot of questions for you about your trip to Europe, but before we dive into the European side of things, I wanted to ask about Founders and Legends. What more you can tell us about it, but also how and why you got involved with it.
Well, I'm a huge Gary Con fan. I've been attending for the last 5 or 6 years. I really love the environment. It's all the game designers. It's a convention for game designers, and I don't know. I guess I'm a kind of a hipster D&D nerd. So, like the old school people, like the people who created it, you can go to Frank Metzer's house and see the little dime store toys that the Monsters Manual is created from. So that's why I like.
I've been dying to get my hands on some of those off of eBay for years. There's the Rust Monster, the Boulette. The Boulette.
Like the fancy.
And Gary Con takes place every spring in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin?
Yeah, it's a must go to. It's very small, intimate, and there's a lot of celebrities that go because it's the kind of place that even though everyone's fans of each other, they just respect each other. It's kind of just the community is very respectful in general because of its, the cooperative gameplay, and everyone sees each other. It's like, oh my God, I've seen that person on TV. So I'm going to get back to my game now.
Oh, so super cool. So you've got a long day coming up on Saturday, because I'm looking at the schedule and I know that you're not only hosting at the event, but you're also running one of the games. So can you tell us, for folks that are interested, and Mike as well, one of the reasons we asked you to be here was to talk a little bit about your participation. What's the schedule for folks that are interested in tuning in? Again, just to give the logistics, it's Saturday, July 28th, we'll be live streaming Founders and Legends from the D&D Twitch channel. This is the event Luke Gygax put together. It's Gary Gygax's birthday, which is a reason why July 28th was.
Yeah, I think it's the day after. I think the actual birthday is the 27th.
Yeah.
The birthday weekend, let's say. Yeah. But he would be turning 80 years old, and so Luke wanted to put this event together. But for folks interested in tuning in on Saturday, when should they tune in? What will they be able to see?
Okay, 10 a.m. is when Luke and I are going to start out the whole day by talking about the history of D&D, and there's going to be a lot of interviews. Mike Merles is going to be there, Joe Manganiello. We're going to kind of go into why they started gaming, so if you want to know that information, watch at 10 a.m. But then we have Stefan Portnoy, he is from Dwarf Forge. He's going to be dungeon mastering 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then there's another set of interviews for an hour, and then I jump in at 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. For an Eberron game. Let's see, and then another hour of interviews, and then 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. is Mike Merles's, I believe that's the Jox Machina game.
Yeah,
correct?
It's another Jox Machina game. So it's going to be very high-level epic action. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah. How high level?
Well, I think we're gonna stay with level 18. You know, I mean, Archon's already a beast, so I don't think I need to give him any more levels yet. So we'll see.
And just to quickly say who's going to be on it, I'm so excited that I jumped the gun. We have Mike No, we have Joe Manganiello, Luke Gygax, I believe, is playing in every single game, Kelly D'Angelo, Elisa Teague, Ivan Van Norman, Jason Charles Miller, Rudy Rutenberg, Amy Vorpal, Ron Matthews, TJ Storm, and I don't know if you know, but you have another player,
yes.
Mike.
Oh, yeah?
You have Jason Lyles.
Cool.
He's 6'9".
Once again, I'll be the smallest person at the table.
If I read it correctly, he was the mocap actor for George in the Rampage movie.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Yeah. The Stefan game, one of the interesting things about that's the first game going on at 11 a.m. Stefan from Dwarven Forge. He will be running an AD&D game. So that kind of a little change of pace for us here, going way back. Going way,
yeah.
But again, kind of this was, I believe, one of Luke's ideas. And I feel remiss not to mention Luke would love to have been on the live stream today. He is off on maneuvers in a undisclosed location. He is military and not able to talk about where he is, but
we've already said too much.
So, right, if I don't show up, you'll know I was taken out for speaking too much. But very excited to promote the show on behalf of Luke Gygax. And so, of course, to do the AD&D game in honor of some of the brand's roots and early editions. And just curious, if memory serves, in the offices here, you used to run some like OD&D games.
So OD&D, that's the colloquial name for the original Dungeons and Dragons from 1974, the year Bart was born.
One more clue for the hackers to gain my identity.
To get to your Gygax credit card. And it's actually it's really fun going back and playing the earlier versions of D&D, because as a designer, it gives you sort of insight into how the game evolved, and then you really want to puzzle over is why did it evolve that way. And when you look at AD&D, I really like playing it. I actually got a chance at GaryCon to play. Luke ran one of his father's original dungeons. And the big change you feel is it feels a lot more, if you're familiar with video games, it feels a lot more like a roguelike. And roguelike generally, I'm sure I'm going to get the details wrong, but generally it means it's a game where you expect the difficulty to really ramp up quickly. You're not necessarily going to win every time you play, like complete the dungeon or survive as your character. And there's an amount of randomness in the game. You might run into a very powerful monster early on, get eaten. Okay, you start over with your character. You might get a little lucky, but it really relies on as a player to make the most of a somewhat random situation where the odds are kind of tilted against you. And that to me is what makes AD&D really fun, because it's a lot less about what abilities your character has and a lot more about, especially with the teamwork, like how can we overcome this thing? How can we avoid this encounter? How can we talk our way out of this situation? And it's interesting to see as the game evolves, players get more abilities and stuff. And I think just it's a natural evolution. Players think, hey, my character, I want to commit to a long-term campaign. And a lot more like how video game RPGs have evolved, where there are like something like Mass Effect, where there is like a narrative or a story. Even in MMO, like in World of Warcraft, the quests you play through have relationships to the story and so on. So it's interesting how within D&D it essentially changed genres. If you're to look at it through the lens of modern video games, each edition is almost like a different type of game to play. And I think a lot of it's just how the game has evolved over the years to match what like dungeon masters and players are looking for. And original D&D and AD&D were very much influenced by novels, fantasy and science fiction, by movies and television. And as D&D evolved, it's interesting to see it got more and more influenced by other games. As the game industry took off and grew, as video games grew, you just see those play patterns shift as games changed, as basically players' desires changed, and the types of games offered broadened. We've seen D&D absorb a lot of that and change over the years. So it's fun going back and playing. And I just like playing, to me, it's always really fun to play that sort of like back against the wall, like what, you have to come up with a clever plan. You can't just use something on your character sheet. To me, it's a really nice change of pace. So.
Super good. So yes, folks will be looking for, as the chat has mentioned, return to THAC0.
Yeah, that's right. THAC0, which when THAC0 came out in 1989, I tell you, as someone who bought that second edition Player's Handbook, it was like, whoa, this is so much better. It's like going from 5 1/4 inch to 3 1/2 inch discs. Like, whoa, this is like so much more durable. I can drop it, and it's it doesn't get as dirty. It's got the little door that protects the disc. It's not just
I have 2 campaigns. One's 5th edition, and there's a intermediate meeting first edition campaign.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's just one of the editions group of friends grew up playing. And yes, those pages in the Dungeon Master's Guide with the combat charts have been just thumbed to pieces.
Yeah, no, it's
yeah. So again, yes, look for the AD&D game with Stefan at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and then for the Maze Arcana game starting up at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So this will be an Eberron game.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Super.
It's my favorite.
We might have made a little announcement yesterday.
Yeah, just a little.
Yes, so the Wayfinders Guide, and boy, we had 2 announcements come out. We had the Wayfinders Guide, and we had the Guildmasters announcement as well.
Yeah.
So two settings announced. One in the world of Magic and Ravnica, and Eberron.
Yep.
Available now on the DM's Guild. So what can you tell us about the Eberron game? Any clues or secrets you wanted to spoil in advance, or to just set the stage for what to expect?
Well, they're going to be playing in a place that we at Inkwell Society and Maze Arcana have not played in before. It'll be on the east coast of Corvair, which is pretty cool. And Rudy helped Keith work on Eberron, the book. So there'll be a lot of really fun stuff that I'm taking directly from the book.
All right.
Yeah, new stuff. It'll be great.
And before, Mike, I ask about your game. Satine, we mentioned this very briefly before the stream started, but you've had a very busy summer. Immediately after the Stream of Many Eyes, it was off to Europe, and then last weekend it was San Diego Comic-Con at BAIT. What was that event like at San Diego?
That was really fun. So it was different than any other convention, any other comic convention I've been to before. I'm like, I'm a little frazzled from all the events. But this was in one of those really cool sneaker stores. I've never actually been inside a sneaker store before, where I think the sneakers are like really fancy and $200 and like collector item things. But it was a collector toy place and sneaker place, and it was the sexiest D&D event I have ever been to. And they had like framed print to canvas, like D&D X bait like stuff. And it was Thursday was the release of Death Saves, Joe Manganiello's clothing line, which I'm fairly certain almost sold everything out. And then Todd James had a signing on Friday, and then the Art and Arcana guys came out and talked about their stuff, and Girls Guts Glory did their live stream.
Yep.
Yeah, it was very nice. There was air conditioning. They only allowed about 40 people in the building at one time, so it was really quiet and had like this really cool chill music playing. It was different than the 200,000 people that were outside of the store.
Yeah, the VODs for the event are in the archives for the D&D Twitch channel now. If folks want to go back and take a look at any of the games there. And I know that you were also involved in one of the Dungeons and Doodles components for the weekend as well, correct?
Yeah, it was the first time I've done that. That was great.
What were you asked to draw as part of the doodles? What did you doodle?
The hardest one was the 6-legged, 7-arm, 8-eyed creature for the monster. Yeah, I ended up doing like, it was like a dragon legs, like dragon haunches, but then also, so there's 2 feet, but then like 4 spider legs in case it needed to move really fast. And then the arms are really creepy, and the eyes, I think I lost track of the eyes. That was...
They're in there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, everything was in the back. If we forgot a limb, it was in the back.
Right, that's like the beholder eye stalks. Are there 10? Oh, yeah, they're tucked behind the back of the head.
Yeah.
Somewhere. I don't really know. So San Diego Comic-Con, it was cool to see you down there at Bait and see everything going on with Joe and Death Saves and adventures outlined as well. So very much looking forward to seeing you again in person for this weekend coming up. So.
Oh, there's every weekend. I think there's something every single weekend. I do have to give props to the folks who organized the Adventures League room. There was about 15 tables, and they did it on their own accord, and they brought out, like, one of the guys, he made 36 dice towers. His name is DM Chad. And he made 36 dice towers, and they had a scavenger hunt. And if you came, you could pick from that or a Mordenkainen's book. And there was a bunch of men and women who were dungeon mastering 12-plus games that entire weekend. So Santa Satine kept taking swag from Bait and then lugging it over to through the crowds all the way to the Adventures League place. And I just posted some stuff this morning, some photos of all the dungeon masters, and they all got the Waterdeep dragons as thank yous. Awesome. And some water bottles and stuff.
Cool. And Mike, so your game, we were kind of talking about it. It's well, first let me go back a second. You were DMing a high-level game at the Stream of Many Eyes.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
What for folks that might not have seen that? How did that go? And how did you set it up for like a high-level play experience?
Yeah, the challenge with high-level play is you have to be able to challenge very powerful characters, which is not necessarily easy, and there's really no such thing as throwing too much firepower at them if you're going the combat route. And for the storytelling, I always like to go over the top, make it really cosmic. So what we had last time was the Raven Queen essentially reached out and needed champions to defend this mighty artifact that holds back the negative energy material plane. Vecna, after being defeated, fled there and was trying to reach out to grab this artifact. The sort of the first light that gleamed in the cosmos, and it's this artifact of hope and icon of positive energy. And so he wanted to reach forth and grab it. So the Raven Queen quickly put together a crack team of mighty heroes and dispatched them to the tower where the shard was kept to protect it at all costs against shadow dragons and death knights that emerged from the negative material plane. So this it's funny. I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do this weekend, and I don't want to tip my hand too much because when you're dealing with really powerful characters, they bring a lot of firepower to the table,
right.
So you don't want to just make it too trivial.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have maybe another sort of cosmic run-in with some powerful entities and something drawn from the past of D&D that maybe Gary Gygax worked on back in the day.
All right.
So,
tying it in well.
Yeah. So I think we've got, kind of delving back into some of the old Gygaxian dungeons and some of the threats. So, so I think we might be doing something with maybe a little entity called Thurisden, if you remember him. So,
oh, sure.
I don't want to go too far in the Darkness Path, but I think it's going to be interesting. Now, the fun thing is we've got a good mix of players, and when you run a game for people you haven't played with before, it's always a little tricky because you don't know exactly what is going to make them really excited. So, especially with a streaming game, I want to try to vary things up a bit more. For the Stream of Many Eyes game, since I knew basically the player, like I got a chance to talk to the big show, Paul, ahead of time, and I knew the other players, like either, like had met them before or can watch them play if they'd streamed. So it's gonna be a little bit more of a challenge this time because I don't have quite the same level of familiarity. I knew like last time, like a really good combat mission would be great. The players would enjoy that. So it's actually a bit more challenging this time around. So, but that's what I love about the streaming games is, it's fun, obviously, hopefully, the goal is to be entertaining, but it's also fun as a dungeon master. You really feel like you start to sharpen your skills because you get to watch, you watch the video afterwards and see what you did well, what you did poorly. And I've been trying to really work on my sort of DM presentation skills. You play in my Friday afternoon games.
Yes.
I don't know if you've picked up on some of the techniques I've been trying to work on and hone
to
use in streams.
Which is the opposite of a high-level game because we're in a first, we started at first level through the Sunless Citadel from Tales from the Yawning Portal.
So I think did you hit third level last time?
I did. I was a session behind, but I finally did.
Yeah, you racked up the XP. Yeah. So I don't know. So I don't know if you've picked up. So I'll use an example.
Yeah. Now I'm curious.
Yeah. Okay. No. So there's been two things I've been working on. And Satine, I'd love to hear you your input, like your thoughts on this. The two things I've been focusing on, we're trying to make my descriptions of monsters more vivid, and to make them more consistent, and then also to keep the flow of combat going between turns. So one of the things I've done, and so it's interesting you didn't pick up on this. Do you remember the bugbear that you guys fought?
The one that keeps sneaking up behind us and stabbing it? Yes,
and remember how she, you could not hurt her? She just kept deflecting every
attack. She had her shield. She kept bouncing the shield.
So that's what I built. So there was the characters were exploring this dungeon, and there was a room where they fought this fire serpent. And I rolled randomly, and it turned out as they're fighting it, this bugbear overhears them and sneaks up. I made my stealth check, and she made it. She beat all your passive perceptions, which is not hard. This group has no passive perception. I think the highest is 11, which is really fun as a dungeon master.
There's some gaps in our party, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so she pokes around the corner, hidden, and puts a javelin through Chris Lindsey's Dwarf Monk. And bugbears devastating sneak attacks, right? They get like the plus 2d6 damage on top of already a lot of damage. So she pokes in and she takes out the dwarf, and I'm thinking, okay, she's got one character down, the rest are hurt. She's gonna fight. She thinks she can take these guys down. And the way I described it, I thought, okay, she has her Morning Star in her shield. So I kind of decided, and this is something I kind of noted ahead of time, and just a quick note, that she's a very defensive fighter. So whenever the players attacked, I would describe it as, okay, you swing your axe, but bugbears are agile, so she very quickly turns and twists and deflects your attack with her shield. And then I'd try to use that to bridge to the next player. So let's say if Bart's Centaur Cleric ran up and swung his mace, and I know that Chris Lindsey's Dwarf Monk is up next, what I would try to describe is, okay, Bart, you attack, you swing your mace, and she turns and twists and smacks your mace aside, leaving you open to a counterattack, and now it's, Chris, what do you do? Now it's your turn. You can see the Centaur Cleric is, driven back by a quick shield bash, and he's completely defenseless. Oh, okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump in between them and punch her in the, while she's kind of, go for a low leg sweep to try to disrupt her. Okay, make your attack. And then build on that. I kind of imagine it in my mind like having toy blocks where I'm building piece by piece, and I'm trying at the end to see, oh, this is the narrative of the fight. We fought against a bugbear who was very well trained with her shield, so we had trouble hitting her, because she had kind of a higher AC than normal compared to the other monsters you'd fought.
Right.
And then so describing her being very good defensive, blocking attacks, using the shield to try to set up for her own attacks, and then always trying to present to the next player, I describe what's going on to you, but then I want to take that description then bridge it to say, hey, Chris, the cleric's in trouble. You can see he's opened up to a counterattack. What do you want to do? So give a little more context to the player's description. So it's something I've been trying to really build. And part of it's the prep for the monster encounters. I just make a couple quick little notes about some of their traits. So that bugbear was, oh, she's very good with her shield. She's defensive. talking about the villain Belak, like more his kind of like cackling, like I'll get you, right, like very vengeful guy. And then the idea when they're fighting the evil druid at the end of the adventure, spoilers, sorry, but rather than there's these monsters that can kind of show up, rather than just having them like walk into the room, I had them burrow up from the soil. On the monster's turn, I would say, okay, you see the druid, he raises his hand and cants a spell, and suddenly the ground shakes and the brutes under you animate and these humanoid plants emerge. Mechanically, it's the same as the monsters walk in through a doorway, but hopefully, it's adding flavor, so it makes it more memorable and it makes the scene more vivid.
No, I will say that there's a narrative to the combat in that way, and it not only helps present it, to paint it, but you, as a player, when it's not your turn, are more apt to listen.
That's exactly what I'm kind of shooting for.
What's going on, and then I can base my tactic off of that.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you're just saying I attack, I'm just trying to add a little bit more of a dramatic flair to it, so you feel like, oh, my attack matters, because I don't want the cleric to get hurt, and I can see just what happened. The bugbear is closing in for the, a finishing blow or something like that.
Well, even for streaming, because streaming, you're not only playing to the people at the table who already have that physical energy exchange with you, but you're also needing to have a similar exchange with the audience. And that's not saying to play to the audience, but you have to give extra as a dungeon master.
Yeah, and that's something I've been trying to get those muscles up. It's like exercise, right? Just run games, but trying to run with purpose, so I can kind of see where I'm trying to go with that, rather than just kind of letting my skills fly wherever they end up ending. So.
Is it difficult for a high-level game mechanically to put it together, or is it just something that's in your skills, your wheelhouse at this point?
Yes.
18th level game sounds very intimidating for me.
It can be, but if you embrace the idea that there's so much going on, that more is more. So when I ran my game at Stream NEI, it's like, why have one Death Knight when I can have 3? Why have one Shadow Dragon when I can have 3, right? And just do that. And because you have to have faith that 18th level characters have a lot of escape hatches. They have a lot of ways to recover. So yeah, I would just say, I do have to admit, I don't really use the challenge rating mechanics for I like to, and that's really part of experience, right? I play the game a lot, so I have a good sense of dramatically what I'm trying to do, or just the situation I want to set up. It might also be part of my AD&D heritage, where I'm like, well, if the fight's too strong, you just leave, right? Like you run away, right? That's a tactic, right? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I think high level play can feel really intimidating. What I do suggest, if you're thinking of running a high-level game, first try it, right? I mean, it might seem intimidating, but just dive in, right? And then just think of what you think is a good challenge, then add 20%, and then go from there. Especially, I think if in a campaign, which would be very different from essentially the one-shot I'm running.
Right.
I think at high-level play, what really shines in a campaign is just raising the stakes, where sessions where it's much more about we're guiding kingdoms, we're dealing with interplanar conflicts. We have an audience with the gods. What are we going to say? Things like that. I think making the players feel like badasses is a good route to go with high level play, because they're high level. So give them a lot more of that respect by default. The NPCs who meet them treat them seriously. They more bend to their will more readily. Things like that. Obviously, like in a 2.5 hours live stream, you can't necessarily capture that. But if you've ever been worried about running a high level play, one of the great things about D&D Beyond is you can just roll up a bunch of 20th level characters and try it. No, really. And I think you might find it's actually a lot less, as long as you're willing to embrace that probably as a dungeon master, you do have to have more of that improvisational ability, because the players have, accounting for all their abilities is impossible, right? There's just a lot if you try to plan out for everything. But I think that's also true for low levels. It's just more true at high levels, so.
Yeah, one of the things I feel would be a catch as a dungeon master would be the amount of dice you're rolling. It's just like, you just did 55 points of damage, I'm sorry I killed your character. But at high level, no, it scales. Like you're not going to swat them any more readily than you would at lower levels.
Exactly. So, and that's why we have average damage of the monster manual, so we just use average damage.
It came when we did the Morning Canaan's Mayhem, when we were doing sort of this bracket monster fight.
That's right.
It was kind of a high level battle royale, and did average damage, and it worked out pretty well. Before we move on, Satina, I've got some questions about Europe, but before we move on to those adventures, I did want to mention one other facet for Founders and Legends. the fact that we're going to be tying a lot of the programming into Extra Life. Extra Life is a charity organization that we've been involved with as Dungeons & Dragons, as the brand. This is our 6th year that we've been involved with Extra Life. It started off, I believe, Greg Bilsland and Chris Dupuis were originally helping to organize the event. It's in support of the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals, and they have their live streaming day that takes place, I want to say this year, on November 3rd. Last year, what we did was to live stream, not just for the 24 hours, but a little bit more throughout the weekend. You were live streaming, Satine was live streaming at Gamehole Con, raising funds for Extra Life and for the hospitals. What we wanted to do this year was kind of expand our efforts a little bit even further out. So for Founders and Legends Day, we'll be tying in the games to our Extra Life page already. We have that up. You can look for it, extra-life.org for Extra Life in general. Go to /team/DND and you'll find the Dungeons & Dragons team there. Folks can join the Dungeons & Dragons team if you're interested in putting together your own live stream event or fundraising in any way that you would like. You can always donate directly to Dungeons & Dragons. We are also setting up pages for individual DMs and groups involved with the event. Stefan has a page set up you can donate at. Maze Arcana has their page, and Mike, I believe you're setting up your page in the...
Yep, I'm going to set it up probably tomorrow, and I'll have my pledge levels and stuff put in, and some of the swag people can get.
Yes, so there's a couple cool ways to do it. Just general donations, always welcome. It goes to a fantastic cause. And then as a brand, we tend to set threshold levels to offer previews of books. We'll put that out a little closer towards Waterdeep and Dungeons of the Mad Mage, and then individual donation levels as well. So you had some great donations come in last year for subclass designs.
Yeah, and I think I still owe someone a subclass. I gotta go through my email and make sure I'm not leaving someone waiting, because I always have this first. But yeah, so what I think I'm gonna try to do this year is last year I did 4. It's $2,500, but I will design a subclass that to your specifications. I'm going to change it up a little bit this year, because I believe when we got the Turtle package up last year, we were able to start selling PDFs on the DM's Guild for Extra Life.
Yes.
So a little preview of one of the things I want to do. What I'd like to do is put up each month, starting this month until at least the end of the year, if not beyond. For a $2,500 donation, I will design a subclass for you to your specifications. It has to still be balanced. And then we'll release that at the end of the year. We'll do a compendium and put those up on DM's Guild. So people can make a donation and get a collection of some new subclasses.
Nice.
So rather than, just kind of have that up front. So it's not like last year I kind of did it, then it was like, oh, well, can other people access this? It'll also include the designs. Everyone who purchased one last year did agree to make them available to everyone as part of the charity effort. So I thought if I did once a month, did one, I can kind of spread it out, and then maybe actually instead of doing 4, do actually 12 over the course of the year. And that would raise, wow, $30,000. Okay, yeah. So as someone who has had people in my family, dealt with cancer, things in the past, it's something I want to try to support. So yeah.
I've seen a couple of questions come up in chat. There are international options as well for donations level. It's not just American hospitals, but that's part of it. And Satine, I'm getting yelled at because I haven't given you a chance to talk in some time. So what will you be doing with Extra Life as we get a little bit closer towards November? I'm hinting at Gamehole Con.
I'm going to Gamehole Con. I think I'm running a game. I'm in a couple different games. There's going to be a lot happening. It's hard to think past this weekend right now. But pretty much any time that we can run games for charity, for this charity, for any of the charities that we raise money for, I'm in. So you guys just tell me where to be and we'll raise money for it. But yeah, Maze Arcana has a page you can go to. I'm not really sure what we're going to do, since Rudy has been working on Eberron, and I've been kind of helping out with the adepts a little bit here and there. So I don't know, maybe I'll make some monsters or something.
We'll be glad to help work with you and to build it out. But having the page up and extending it through the year, it's a huge help. I've been very privileged to be sort of helping organize Extra Life on this side of things. It's very rewarding, and again, if you are able to contribute, for the folks out there, it does go to a fantastic cause. I visited the Seattle Children's Hospital, our local children's hospital, and it's not just for the kids that are patients there, but for their relatives, for their siblings. If patients are there for a long time, their siblings, they have classrooms set up in the hospital for their siblings so they don't interrupt their school years and things along those lines. To bring games up to the rooms so that the kids can play and have a little bit of regular childhood added to their day if they have to be in the hospital. So. Turtle package, One Grung Above, Lost Kenku, those were all packages we put up on the DM's Guild last year. They're still there. You can still buy them now, and the money still goes towards Extra Life. T-shirt sales, we'll be getting those up and running in the days and weeks ahead. And as Mike mentioned, we'll be looking to add some additional material to the DM's Guild as well.
Can I actually make monsters for this?
Sure.
Is that like a thing?
Sure.
It is now.
It is, yeah, there you go.
Yes! Okay, then that's it. I'm going to make monsters. I'm not sure how much we're going to put it in for, but keep your eyes peeled. I will make some monsters for you guys.
We'll make it happen. So that's my appeal for Extra Life. We'll talk more about it in the weeks and months ahead. But Satine, kind of circling back towards your summer of fun and adventure, between the Stream of Many Eyes and Founders and Legends, you were out and about in European countries. What was that about?
So Rudy and I were summoned out to France for D&D in a Castle. You can check it out at dndinacastle.com, where we spent 3 full gaming days. It was a 5-day event. 3 days were gaming days. I had a very reasonable party of 6 people who were amazing. We played in Eberron. They broke Eberron. They actually sided with the bad guy, went 1,000 years back, killed the king Galifar when he was young, before he had kids. Like, it was really crazy. Rudy ran, his was like 48 hours in 3 days of game.
Wow.
Like, I think his was the longest. And I was like, Rudy, you're crazy. No, his players were crazy. Like, they actually were there and like, they'd wake up and they're like, where is he? I'm like, I think he's sleeping for a couple hours. But yeah, and then Jeremy Crawford, he played, and I know that he actually got the layout of the castle. This is Chateau de Chalon, and he got the layout of the castle so he could actually make the game in the castle. And so it was half LARP, half like game. I know there was a part where he had the players as their minis in the dungeon area, like in the basement. And so they would have to move, and then someone else is playing the monsters, and they would have to move, 5 feet here, 10 feet, 30 feet there. It was great. And there was, I think he was introducing Strahd, and I think this was like a prologue or something. He was introducing Strahd, and this is all hearsay, except for I did see the bat afterwards. But he's saying it, and it's very slow and very diabolical. All of a sudden, a bat flies in and just hangs out on the ceiling. It was really cool. So D&D in a Castle was amazing, and I think we're almost sold out for next year already.
Cool.
That one's going to be in a different place. But before that, we took a week to go to London and find out what the community is like out there. And oh my gosh, it was so cool. The thing about London is there's a couple game stores. There's Leisure Games and Orc's Nest. They're mostly like Orc's Nest is just stuff, but because there's no room for anyone to game in. Leisure Games is kind of out a bit. Yeah. And they've got a few tables. It was actually cool. We did a signing there. But really, they don't have a lot of game places to play at. So they all play in pubs. And I found out there's a place called RP Haven, and they raise money for their community. They'll either raise money to buy books for schools, like D&D books for schools, or they raise money to pay pubs to let them game. I thought that was super cool. So they worked with this woman named Paige, and we happened to be there during her grand opening. So she started a cafe / art gallery / game store on the east side of London, and it's called The Thirsty Dragon, and that was really cool. It was a nice, refreshing thing, and she was explaining that she wanted to create a place for people like her, that wasn't your normal idea of games. So it was really beautiful. Leaders from the community came out. We ended up doing signings, but then took everybody with us to lunch and on the tube across London, and we just kept building and building. And instead of just doing a signing and talking with people for about 10 minutes, we ended up spending each day we spent at least 12 hours with the groups. And we're like, we're just doing 2 hours here, 2 hours there. But we got to really talk to them about what they want and what their community is like and how strong their community is, even though they don't have a lot of store support. And I thought that was really cool. Each one of their meetup groups has 3,000 plus members, and these people find each other. And so that was the most heartwarming thing to me about the journey. And then we went from London. It was one of those things that you're like, oh, I'm in my 20s. I can go on these adventures across. And then you end up almost 40 going, oh my God, this adventure is so much more exhausting than I expected. But it was so invigorating just because I personally recorded, Rudy and I personally recorded 50 interviews with people in England and France, but we talked to hundreds of people and heard all their stories, and it was really beautiful. So we went to London, to the castle, and then hung out in France for a while. And we're talking 3 locations in one day for a few days. And like I said, same thing. We would go to one place and did a signing there, and then we went to a Star Wars pub and hung out and did signings and interviews there, and went around and found out how in dire need they are for translations and how they what their country's community is like because of the delay in translations, and how much in spite of that they're trying to there's a federation of tabletop gamers. I didn't know about that before. And there's other people who are just really trying to champion D&D in their country, which I think is pretty amazing. Getting a chance to sit down and talk to them is phenomenal. And learning about all the podcasters and people who came out in France who barely speak English, but they're just so passionate to connect and kind of say their piece. And had a couple of them would have somebody translate for them because they're like, you're here, we need to tell you things. Now, it was pretty cool. There's a couple of podcasters and Twitch streamers out there that are like, look at what we're doing. So we went from there to Manchester. We had to cancel our one of our other trips just because it was a lot. It's just a lot of traveling, and airplane cancellations and having to go on the train and then hotel mess ups and all that stuff. And we went to Manchester. Manchester's community was one of those, it's kind of like Portland and Seattle with some Tampa. It was really interesting. But their tabletop community is super hardcore. There's an area that's just like this artist district, and you've got game stores all over the place. And they're Fanboy 3, I think, is the one that had 2 stories and I think 10 game tables per floor. They don't have a problem with places to game there. People drove out in all these locations 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. It was pretty incredible. There was a beholder, just like graffiti, beholder graffiti. It was really cool. And it was just really nice to see all of you can't wrap your head around it thinking about what gaming is like in other countries. But by being there, it was very apparent what they need, what they like, what we can help them with. It was cool. And icing on the cake, I got to hang out with Mazmataz quite a few times. And Maz found out that I was eating sugar in Europe, brought out biscuits, and biscuits are cookies, but they're like shortbread cookies. So they made me biscuits. They made 18 of them. I ate 12. And on the very last day, they made this Victoria cake. It's like a Victoria sponge cake, and it's this decadent, delightful, soft, delicate thing. And it's got jam and cream, and we ate half of it, and all I could think of is, Kyle Vogt would love this. I wrapped it up, put it in my purse, got smushed, put it in my suitcase, took it with us back in my suitcase, took it out, and there's this saran wrap pancake.
Yeah, I can't imagine that travels well. Not over long distances.
So that, in a nutshell, I mean, there's many other things that happened, but that's the nutshell of the European tour of meeting the community, and that's pretty much all our purpose was. It wasn't a vacation. It was a lot of work, a lot of traveling. It was 100% what can we do for the community, and meeting all of the group leaders. Like that was the coolest. So I hope to go to more places and meet other community leaders.
Sounds good. Yeah, by all means, I've been dying to find out just a little bit more about the trip. So thank you for sharing some of the European adventures, and I'm extremely jealous. It sounded like a super awesome trip. So in any case, yeah, I know we've been having conversations around the office here about increasing live streams in different countries and different time zones and in different languages. So that's definitely something we're looking at pursuing future.
There's a strong Portuguese. There's a lot of Portuguese streams that want to go to show more for D&D to say hey. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting that there was a lot of Portuguese streams in London.
Oh, in London. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I had no idea. Cool.
I will say, London, one of my favorite cities to visit in the world. So it is a super awesome place. I can imagine. Yes, the rent costs for retail being what they are. I'm not super surprised that gaming stores are at a premium and a bit tight, but glad. But the pub culture definitely I can see being very conducive to breaking out D&D for a couple hours. So good stuff. One quick announcement again for Dragon Plus live stream. I always forget to talk about Dragon Plus on the live stream. But speaking of London, our folks who put together Dragon Plus Dialect, our publisher, they're out in the Bristol area over there as well. So shout out to Matt Chapman and company, and Chris Imlay and Dylan as well. Dragon Plus issue 21 will be coming out as always for free on iOS, Android, and dragonmag.com at the beginning of August. Look for more information in that issue for some of our upcoming products, including some Waterdeep Dragon Heist previews. Which includes a super cool cartoon map of the Yawning Portal designed by Jason Thompson.
Oh, nice.
If you're familiar with that spread from the book. Jason Thompson also has a cartoon adventure coming up in issue 21, The Six Faces of Death. And apparently he's got a connection with Kyle Balda, the director of Minions. We also speak with Kyle Balda and came up with some stats for what a minion would be in your game as well. So all that in issue 21. One of the things, this is one of the questions I had going back to the AD&D side of things with the minion and the way that the game has evolved and changed over time. In AD&D, I remember one of the components almost as a necessary part of your equipment were hirelings and henchmen.
Yeah.
And so the minion would be sort of a case for the modern era. Was there a conscious decision about where that might have been taken across the editions as like, well, we don't want hirelings and henchmen to be the door opener and the potion tester?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and I think a lot of it too is as characters became a little more complicated and more powerful themselves, they didn't have to rely on henchmen to kind of take some of the risk. D&D originating from tabletop wargaming, I think there's a real sense that a little more emphasis on realism, because that's where tabletop wargaming came from, was historical realism.
The Kriegspiel.
Kriegspiel being this like sort of tool that Prussian officers used back in the 19th century to train for warfare. And so I think the initial designs, we thought, well, it doesn't make sense that a single person could fight 5 people and win. So now, obviously, that changed pretty quickly.
I've seen The Big Show.
Yeah.
You could fight everyone at
But I think there was this idea that you would get a coterie of followers, like that would be essentially your little army that you'd start building up. And there's a big emphasis in AD&D on like, you know, getting a castle and getting an army and things like that. So I think it just kind of grew out of that wargaming tradition, and it did, as characters became more powerful, that kind of faded off.
All right. Yeah. Well, I remember that as part of our first edition characters was always that charisma score.
Yeah,
and it's like you needed high. Why do I need this? Well, because you
want followers. Yeah,
and they're gonna help you out.
They can take an arrow for you. So
yeah, take an arrow.
If you've had enough charisma, they'll say thank you for it. They won't just run away.
So in any case, just looping back around to the beginning, did want to mention for folks tuning in now, we've been talking this hour about Founders and Legends. This is the event that Luke Gygax has been organizing. Again, it will be taking place July 28th. This Saturday, we'll be streaming it from the D&D Twitch channel. We'll be doing 3 games throughout the day and interspersed with discussions led by Satine and Luke as well. Discussions and interviews starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time, ending at 10 p.m. Pacific time. So we've got kind of a long day. I believe Luke will be playing his original character, Melf.
Yep. Jeremy Crawford redesigned him. Yeah, Melf the Elf is back, but now in 5th edition
that is
form.
so cool.
So is the apocryphal story, is the story of his name apocryphal, or is that his real?
The story is Melf is a contraction of male elf, which was like he was like picked his character male elf and then just ended up with Melf. I don't know. I actually have played with Luke when he played Melf.
Yeah.
I didn't think to ask. I'll have to ask at the stream. So
yeah, that's the story I'd always heard, and but it is delightful to me to be involved. I've played D&D my whole life. I love it as a hobby. I love it as a game. It's eternally delightful to me to be involved in an event with Luke Gygax, who created Melf, and just growing up with like Melf's, Minute Meteors and all of these other spells, and just, some of the key flavor names from way back when. So it's delightful on a personal level.
Cool.
I think that's the case for all of us. Like I started, 30 years ago, and it's one of those things that over time, just getting closer to the D&D creator community, it's like, oh my God, like we all have a reverence for one another, and we have a reverence for all the things that have come before us. And this event is the culmination of all that. And it's a way for us to say thank you and to really get excited with each other about it.
So Mike, if folks want to see more of you, we've got Happy Fun Hours stream every Tuesday.
Yep, 1 p.m.
1 p.m. Pacific. What will be going on the stream next week? Will you be back in the office?
I'll be back on Tuesday. So I'm taking next Monday off, but I'll be back on Tuesday, and we're gonna finish off more of the rules for summoning when I work on those spells. So, and then use that to build psionics. So.
Ooh.
Cool. Good times.
And Satine, obviously you're going to be hosting on Saturday, and any plans for the rest of the summer for more Maze Arcana goodness coming down the line?
Yeah, so we have Inkwell Society is coming back very soon. Wednesday, Rudy, Kyle, and I will be on twitch.tv/Maze Arcana at 7 p.m. talking about Eberron and how our characters were built using a lot of the stuff that he made from the book, and where we're going to be going with that. Gen Con is next week. I really am not going to be able to sleep. We've got 3 Maze Arcana games, and Inkwell, a Sirens of the Realms. This one's funny. So none of the girls will be there, but we have an open mic jam session with Amy Vorpal, Amy Dolan, Rudy Rutenberg, who plays Magic Missile. It's a boy band. And then we have Nate Taylor and Stefan Porknoy, who are playing in their own Dwarven Forge band on our stream, and that's like Saturday. But we have, so we've got the 3 Maze Arcana games, 7 panels. Probably have to call in sick, guys. But I think that, and in September, there is the event that I'm doing with Chris Perkins in Portland, but that's what we're doing. I think that's going to be enough for us to do.
It's a lot, but it's much appreciated. And again, looking forward to meeting down in LA and watching some more Dungeons and Dragons. Really quickly, here we are at the top of the hour. D&D News will be on at 3:30, so tune in for Greg Tito. A bit of a announcement-heavy week this week, so lots for him to talk about. And Dice Camera Action will be on at 4 p.m. Pacific. I believe this is a bit of a... I'm looking at Pelham now. Have we spoiled Dice Camera Action? Yeah. Okay, so kind of a pet-friendly Dice Camera Action for waffles and other critters, animal critters this week. We will be back for Dragon Plus, the live stream next week. I will not be here, but Jeremy Crawford will be running Dragon Plus. Following up, you had a ton of questions in chat from the last session, so we wanted to dedicate next week to Jeremy having a chance to address a lot of those questions. So look for that next week. I'll be off in the motherland of Ireland doing my own scouting about. So
cool.
I was too jealous of Satine's trip, and I decided I had to get on there. In any case, thank you so much for watching. As always, we appreciate everyone taking an hour out of your day. Thank you to our followers, our subscribers. Thank you so much to our moderators as well. We love spending this hour with you, and we will see you again next week. So thank you to Mike, and thank you to Satine. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Oh, bye.
Bye.